Today I want to give a brief introduction to our ThingWorx Analytics Manager, and I'm going to do that by walking through a tutorial that we provide with the application in our online help documentation. So I'm going to create a very simple example of an external computation model. In this case, it's going to be an Excel file that's going to do some computation or calculation for me. And I'm going to show you how you can use Analytics Manager to drive that calculation from data coming from your IoT application. So with the Analytics Manager installed, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create what's called an analysis provider. This is what provides me with the capability to talk from the ThingWorx server to a computation tool such as Excel. So I'm going to name mine the Excel provider. I'm going to use our Excel connector and use the default rules here. So now I've established a provider, so my ThingWorx server knows that it can be able to talk to Excel computation engines that register with the ThingWorx server. The next step is I need to start the agent up where I have Excel installed. So we have an agent, and I'm going to start that up. It's going to register itself back with the ThingWorx server so that it can talk and actually can receive computation jobs as they're queued up from the server. So that's starting up. Now let me show you the simple example I'm going to use for you today. I have a very simple spreadsheet. It's got two inputs, A and B, and it generates an output C by adding those two numbers together. When setting up your workbook for Excel, follow the instructions in our documentation. Also, we refer you out to Microsoft for setting up an XML map so that you have a map of inputs and results. That's what's going to be used by the Analytics Manager for defining some data shapes so that you can use those data shapes for sending data between your things into the workbook for calculation. So next, I'm going to create my analysis model from that spreadsheet. Very simple. I'm going to create an Excel model. I'm going to pick the file. So my addition workbook, upload that. It's going to read the name. It's going to store it in a certain location. I can give it a description if I like. And I'm going to have it read that spreadsheet to generate my input parameters and result parameters. So now that model has been created. If I take a look at that model, you'll see a few things I can take a look at. For example, it read into my workbook, and I can see my A and B being my input parameters, and C being the results that are put back out. They're all base type numbers. I did the inspection of the sheet to figure that out. And the next thing I can do is test. So I want to verify if this particular model that I've created can do what I expect. I'll just enter in a couple numbers here. Add a row and submit that job. And as the job finishes, we can see it added 12 and 435 to get 447. So I know at this point I've uploaded my model, it's working, I've tested it, it's giving me the results I expect. Before moving off my model, I want to enable it. We have a little workflow or lifecycle state here. When you upload a model, we upload it for testing only. It's not available for use or computations until you enable that. So I've now enabled my model. The next step is I need to figure out when do I want that computation to be done. So I'm going to create an analysis event, and this is going to be the event that actually triggers this calculation to run, and we're going to tie it into some things we've actually built into our system. So in our case, I have a sample demo thing that was created. I'm going to listen to that demo thing, and when there's a data change on a value called first input, I'm going to ask it to do this calculation. In my example, I'm not going to run as a simulation, which is just a continuous job feeding data from the IoT application. I'm going to do a one-time calculation. So that event has been created. Now I'm going to map the data. So I'm going to take those input values that are coming in or off my thing. So I'm going to take my first input and I'm going to map it to A in the calculation sheet, and I'm going to take my second input and map it to B, so that now when that event happens, it'll read data off this discrete thing and send it as input to the calculation. And then as a result of the calculation, I'm going to write that back to my thing as a result of addition so that my property gets updated. So that's my simple mapping so that I can now have another application actually do complex calculations. You know, think of this as a simple example with addition, but you can think of how you can span this out to more advanced computational tools or calculators. And similar to enabling my model, I'm going to enable this event so it's active and it's running. You can also disable if you want to turn it off. So I've enabled that event to be running. So now I'm going to test out all this working together, and I'm going to do this through the composer interface just for a very simple example. We also have a demo mashup you can take a look at to add the numbers together so you can see job status, and this gives you a good example of how to add this capability into some visualizations. But just starting on the thing itself, my discrete thing, I'm going to go ahead and set the second input to some value. I can refresh here. You notice it didn't calculate because my event is only listening to data change events on the first value. So I will set that, and when I refresh, we'll see it did the addition for us. So there's a quick example of going through the Analytics Manager. The last piece I will show you is we also have a job monitoring, just so you can take a look at the jobs that have gone through. We can see over the past little bit, I've been playing around and done about 8 different calculations through here. I'll show you the ones that have completed. So if I want to look into details, I can also look into details of when it was completed. Look at the values that came in. This was the ones I set directly on the thing itself and what the results were that came back. So that's your quick introduction to the ThingWorx Analytics Manager. Again, as you have this installed, the tutorial here will walk you through how to do these steps so that you have a quick application. We also have an example doing simulation, which is a continuous integration with data from the thing into the calculation engine. So hopefully this provided some information and introduction to what happens in Analytics Manager and where you can look for some additional resources for help.